Welcome back to the Fire and Desert, Season 2, with myself, Johnny. Thanks for waiting for the first episode. We've had a break so we can refresh our minds and allow the researching and writing of the episodes to catch up as our recording started to lead ahead. Thanks for staying with us, and now on to the show. Alright, so welcome back to the Fire and Desert with myself, Johnny, and Pat. How you going?
Good to be back.
Yeah, it's Season 2, and hopefully we'll try to get something going on this part of the year.
Yeah, you mean people are tuning back in to listen to us?
Hope so.
Indeed.
Alright, this is from a lady called Key, and she says, I dated this guy in New York City who was an orthopedic surgeon. We went out on a few dates, and he was seemingly lovely and positioned himself as this humble guy from Texas who hates dating in the city and wants to find a nice girl. Okay, yeah, that's me, I thought. He had to go to DC for a 4-week rotation, and he said, I want to fly you to visit me. I thought, yes, honey, love that for me. The day before he left, we went to a bar that my roommate worked at. She gave us so many drinks, so many cocktails, and really hooked us up. When we were done, we went to pay our tiny bill. She comped us and he paid. We went home and got busy, except it was just bad. I knew it wasn't going to work. Anyway, he left in the morning and I went to talk with my roomie. And she told me he didn't tip. I was livid. I hate bad tippers. It's so mean. Plus he had money. So I admit, I ghosted him for a couple of days. I was just so off it. Days later, I called and apologized for not chatting for a couple of days and just said I'm not into it. He was such a baby about it. Whatever, I wasn't trying to make you my girlfriend. I'm like, sweetie, you couldn't bear the thought of 4 weeks without me trying to fly me out. But okay, I'm crazy. Cool, bye. The next one's from Madeline. The nice guy love bombed me. He called himself a feminist, was passionate about animal rights, real nice guy stuff. He wasn't like all the disrespectful men. But whenever he confronted with something he did wrong or upset me, he lashed out. It was like a tantrum. He felt entitled because he showed basic respect. He felt I shouldn't even have a problem with anything he did, and that my emotions were invalid. I think that's what is dangerous about guys like that. You and all your friends see him as a nice guy until they're made to feel they aren't perfect, and by then you're sucked in. So those two were from a website called Mamma Mia about nice guys dating stories, and
Okay.
we're going into Dr. Robert A. Glover's book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, and we're exploring that. But before we do, I'll get some reflections from yourself, Pat. How are you going with that? Those two stories.
I'm not sure what to really reflect on with this one, actually. It's a bit tricky.
Well, how about the first one, about the orthopedic surgeon? If you met a girl and then you're like that desperate to have her, would you fly her all the way across the United States to be with you? And you go on this date and you have all this alcohol and you're paying this,
Yeah.
right? And from her perspective, she knows the waiter because they're roomies.
Yeah.
And he didn't give a tip. Now, this is Australia. We don't do tipping.
Yeah,
generally.
the tipping culture in the States is it's like I was born in America. I consider myself half American,
Yeah.
but even that the tipping culture is something that just I do not understand.
Yeah, but in America, like, this is how the low income people make the money, because there's no basic
There's no minimum wage. Correct.
Yeah.
That's right.
Now she's angst at him because she didn't tip, and the way he responded, I think, is what the point of the woman is making, is that he was a bit like taken back when she called him up on it, but she also ghosted him as well. And then there was a bit that says like, oh, I wasn't going to make you my girlfriend. So there's that sort of like, I'm paying you so that I can sort of lead you on and make you my girlfriend kind of thing. But at the same time, I'm thinking the story, there's also the nicety about the girl, which is that she's also getting at him because she didn't tip.
Yeah.
Even though he paid all this money to fly her over and also pay for the bill.
This is the weird thing, is that these women look at these men and put them in the category, the box of, oh, these are the nice guy traits. And I go, that runs in the face of my idea of what constitutes a good, decent person.
Yeah.
Or guy in this case, but a good, decent guy. That doesn't actually sync up, at least in how I see it, at least.
Yeah.
So it makes it really hard. It does make it a bit hard to comment.
Yeah, like there's a niceties on both sides, and they're really, even though he's this rich guy, like she thinks he's Scrooge about tipping, even though she's had her expenses all paid for by this guy.
Yeah,
and it's sort of like this. Oh, I'm sort of one.
I get the sense from this story. When you were reading the story out originally, or for the first time, I was listening to it and going, I think that there's something that isn't. There's a piece missing from the story here. I think that there's gaps. Because normal interactions between two adults don't explode like that when you're asked a innocuous question. Most people don't naturally automatically explode with this outburst of anger, right? Unless there's underlying issues there. But my guess is that there's been some miscommunication, or there's missed expectations on both sides of the story here. But
how about a second one where this person who's the feminist, animal rights, real nice person, he doesn't act like all the other disrespectful men, and then when she really gets to know him, disagrees, or he does something wrong, he lashes out.
That's not a trait of a decent man, a decent person here. This sounds more like someone who is punching the cards of ticking all the social justice-y type boxes, and then when he is challenged on what seems like really innocuous, simple things, he hasn't been told no, so he lashes out. So again, not what I'd class as a nice person.
Okay, so we're going to go into the book, and we're going to lift up a few things from what Dr. Robert A. Glover says. So, a quick one. So, what is a nice guy, and the definitions and the characteristics? And the quote, it is, they all believe that if they are good and do everything right, they'll be loved, get their needs met, and have a problem-free life.
Okay, then.
So, the examples he gives is like, the wife will run the show, like she runs everything. He always defaults to her, pretty much. The wife and the girlfriend is frustrated because when it comes to conflict, he avoids conflict, right? So it's like, happy family because there's no conflict. But if there's no conflict, then all your differences aren't resolved. So
there's no resolution to conflict when it happens. And conflict is natural. It's normal.
There's sort of like a hidden bit there that we're a nice family because we never argue. Well, but are you going anywhere? Like, which direction are you taking into? The other one is that the guy walks all over him. So he never says no. He always is pretty much a yes person, and he always just goes, you know what? Let's do it your way. So
it's called the path of least resistance.
Path of least resistance. However, if you were doing that all the time, you sort of think you might have this hidden thing that you're giving leverage to that person, or you have leverage saying, we've been doing it all your way. So when it comes to my time, we want it definitely my way. But you never communicated that at all.
Well, that's the thing. Is if you go through life and you're always at the forefront telling people this is how we're going to do it, essentially practicing all the hallmarks of bad leadership, poor leadership skills, of just leading from the front, but just telling people what to do, how it's going to work. If you do that all the time, it's not going to end out very well for you. If you do the opposite of that and let everyone else make the decisions, and you're just passively drifting through life, you're going to hit the same problem. If you go through life and you're passive, you're letting people walk all over you, you're going to get a similar problem where things aren't going to work out well either.
All right, so I'll go into a bit more into this book, and we'll take a reading from there. So, characteristics of a nice guy. Every nice guy is unique, but all have a cluster of similar characteristics. These traits are the result of a script, often formed in childhood, that guides their lives. While other men may have one or two of these traits, nice guys seem to possess a significant number. Nice guys are givers. Nice guys frequently state that it makes them feel good to give to others. These men believe their generosity is a sign of how good they are, and will make other people love and appreciate them. Nice guys fix and caretake. If a person has a problem, has a need, is angry, depressed, or sad, nice guys will frequently attempt to solve or fix the situation, usually without being asked. Nice guys seek approval from others. A universal trait of the nice guy syndrome is the seeking of validation from others. Everything a nice guy does or say is at some level calculated to gain someone's approval or avoid disapproval. This is especially true in their relationships with women. Nice guys avoid conflict. Nice guys seek to keep their world smooth. To do this, they avoid doing things that might rock the boat or upset anyone. Nice guys believe they must hide their perceived flaws and mistakes. These men are afraid the others will get mad at them, shame them, or leave them if some mistake or shortcoming is exposed. Nice guys seek the right way to do things. Nice guys believe there is a key to having a happy, problem-free life. They are convinced that if they can only figure out the right way to do everything, nothing should ever go wrong. Nice guys repress their feelings. Nice guys tend to analyze rather than feel. They may see feelings as a waste of time and energy. They frequently try to keep their feelings on an even keel. Nice guys often try to be different from their fathers. Many nice guys report having unavailable, absent, passive, angry, philandering, or alcoholic fathers. It is not unusual for these men to make a decision at some point in their lives to try to be 180 degrees different from dad. Nice guys are often more comfortable relating to women than to men. Due to their childhood conditioning, many nice guys have few male friends. Nice guys frequently seek the approval of women and convince themselves they are different from other men. They like to believe that they are not selfish, angry, or abusive traits they link to other men. Nice guys have difficulty making their needs a priority. These men often feel that it is selfish to put their needs first. They believe it is a virtue to put the needs of others ahead of their own. Nice guys often make their partner the emotional center. Many nice guys report that they are only happy if their partner is happy. Therefore, they will often focus tremendous energy on their intimate relationships.
Right.
So
there's a lot to unpack there.
There's a lot of traits there, but it is that kind of thing that what is your identity? You don't really have your identity. Your identity is in the other person. You're always trying to seek approval. You're trying to avoid conflict. You try to hide what you are because of shame and that people will make fun of you, that people get mad at you.
There's a sense of, almost I'm hearing as a bit of a sense of insecurity about who you are as a person, and then trying to desperately to mask and hide that and put all of this, almost these superficial characteristics in front to try and distract and hide that.
Yeah, it's like you're uncomfortable being who you are, right? And they think that these things might come from childhood. So you might have a really broken family. Yeah. So maybe your dad was abusive. So to be good in a sense, because maybe your mom would bag him out, that you try to be the good boy in the family and do whatever he isn't.
Yeah. And often that does lead to a very destructive conclusion at the end of that, though. So a lot of these traits, while I think that from the sounds of it, like when I was listening to some of the items on the list, I'm thinking, going, hang on, those aren't inherently bad things. Trying to be the person who's providing conflict resolution, or trying to build other people up, support other people. Those sort of character traits on their own in isolation are not necessarily bad things. In fact, I think that they are commendable traits. But when they're being used in this way to try and put up a mask or a facade on over your own personality, then you're suppressing yourself, and that causes further internal conflict, further internal insecurities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Let me ask you, like, these traits that we've come across, we've listed out. Can you think of anyone like, don't say the name.
Yeah,
But,
of
like,
course,
can you
of
think of
course.
a person in your friends, family that might have some of these traits?
Sure, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so what's it like being with that person?
I think almost I describe it as constantly hiding.
Constantly hiding.
Yeah, they're almost constantly on guard, waiting for someone to attack them almost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, then do you really know that person? Would you say that you really know that person?
No, not really. No.
Okay. Would you
Like-
want to be long-term friends with that person, or and maybe
No, I'm getting what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, if that's their personality, their current personality, then
Yeah.
no, because whatever relationship you form with them is superficial,
yeah,
and that's the most it can be. If you take that into the dating scene, then what you're presenting is you're offering a superficial relationship, a relationship that can't actually grow or develop and go deeper.
yeah,
Which is actually what you're looking for in relationships.
yeah. It's like it's so hard to relate to that person.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just thinking back to another person I'm thinking of.
Mm.
It's quite painful to be around that person because you can't speak openly, you can't speak honestly.
Yeah.
Because like a person feels when the only person opens up when they feel safe and secure around you, and like what's this person going to react like, because you don't know who they really are.
So how about you? Have you encountered some of these nice guy tendency
Well, I could
types?
Yeah, I mean that, and also I probably used to have some of these traits, and then just sort of like after a while you have to learn to, I guess, love yourself and to take after your own needs.
Yeah.
Because putting your sense of worth and seeking approval from another person,
Yeah.
you can never make that person happy.
Yeah.
And I think it links back to what we talked about, the very last episode of last season about Marcus Aurelius, that stoicism is about being grateful, but also loving yourself and being one with nature.
Being accepting of who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because life is so transient. You put this person on the pedestal, they're not going to be very comfortable about that. You know, like, it's like they think that they always have this anxiety. So what I'll do is I'll probably just list what's so wrong with some of the behaviors. So it goes, what are some of the not so nice traits of nice guys? And I'll just list them out according to the book. So nice guys are dishonest. Nice guys are secretive. Nice guys are compartmentalized. Nice guys are manipulative. Nice guys are controlling. Nice guys give to get. Nice guys are passive aggressive. Nice guys are full of rage. Nice guys are addictive. Nice guys have difficulties setting boundaries. Nice guys are frequently isolated. Nice guys are often attracted to people and situations that need fixing. Nice guys frequently have problems in intimate relationships. Nice guys have issues of sexuality. Nice guys are usually only relatively successful. Do you want to go into any one of those ones?
I think, especially the first couple points in that list.
Dishonest and secretive.
Yeah, the first dishonest and secretive.
All right, so
those are quite interesting, because if we're talking in the context of relationships, especially male-female relationships, romantic relationships, the issue, if you're bringing those sort of character traits into the relationship, that's you're putting up a facade, you're putting up a mask, you're hiding parts of yourself. Fortunately, the opposite partner will often be able to see straight through that. They'll see something's not right here, and it'll stick out like a red flag.
Yeah. So I'll go into what those two bits are, because they're really short.
Yeah.
So it goes, nice guys are dishonest. These men hide their mistakes, avoid conflict, say what they think people want to hear, and repress their feelings. These traits make nice guys fundamentally dishonest. And the other one is nice guys are secretive. Because they are so driven to seek approval, nice guys will hide anything that they believe might upset anyone. The nice guy motto is, if at first you don't succeed, hide the evidence.
Yeah.
I guess when you think of those traits and think about the explanations, that they repress, they hide, they only want to seek approval, so they don't want to be honest about stuff, then it really becomes hard to know that person, because what's it going to be this time? So again, like, do you think from the first part and the second part there's a link there?
Oh yeah, a lot of the character traits that we've been discussing, they're interlinked, and they unfortunately will play off each other, probably cause further issues and problems that have to then be resolved.
All right, so I'll give you an example which from the book again. He goes, everyone thinks he's such a nice guy. So this is an example from a spouse.
Yeah.
Okay, example from a spouse. Example from a spouse. Everyone thinks he's such a great guy, and I'm really lucky to have him. But I don't know what he can really be like. He's always helping people out with their car or something else that needs fixing. When I ask him to do something, he tells me that he can never make me happy, and I'm nagging and controlling like his mother. Another one is he will never tell me that when something is bothering him. He'll just keep it in, and it will build up like a pressure cooker. I won't have a clue that anything is bothering him, and then out of the blue, he'll explode and will end up in a big fight. If he would just tell me when he is upset about something, it would make it a lot easier. And the other one is when I try to talk to him about something that is bothering me, he tries to fix it. He thinks that if I just did everything his way, it would solve all my problems. He always tells me I'll dwell on the negative and he can never make me happy. All I really want is for him to listen to me.
Couple issues there. One is that, well, as men, we tend to like to fix things.
Yeah.
Like our default reaction, and this isn't a I don't see this as a nice guy attribute. I think even though the book described it as one. Default for men, the way we operate is if you present us a problem, our first gut instinct is, oh, there's a problem, there's a solution, let's go figure out the solution, because then it doesn't become a problem anymore. Mm-hmm. So that in itself is not necessarily a problem, but I think in that particular story it highlighted something quite interesting where what the man in this relationship was doing is he was going and just fixing one problem after another and finding problems to fix and using that, I think, as some form of emotional validation. Mm-hmm. What he's doing is he's ignoring his relationship with his spouse or his wife at home and letting a lot of these underlying issues fester and grow until, as the wife pointed out, they explode.
Yeah, it's not being comfortable with some of the flaws or that you even have a problem because you're trying to be this nice guy. You're always acting like you're perfect.
Yeah.
When, we all struggle deep down inside.
Hate to break it to you, but unfortunately, we're not perfect. Yeah. Not a single one of us.
But it's being comfortable with living with the fact that you're not perfect.
Yeah. Accepting of that. And going, you know what? I might screw up. I might make mistakes. That's okay because that's an opportunity for me to try and improve and get better.
Yeah. So I'll try and finish. Is that by being comfortable with the fact that you're imperfect, and when you encounter problems, you're able to share that with your partner, with your close person, and being comfortable with the fact that they're happy to see your flaws in who you are and to help you through these problems.
Yeah.
With the nice guy, it's like I have to be the one who knows everything. I have to have that pressure on myself. I put that pressure on myself to actually be the perfect guy who knows everything, and therefore I will jump straight to trying to fix your problems rather than listen to it and let you, in that coaching kind of sense, let you figure it out. Let me also ask you, like, if I swap the genders around, do you think it's possible that these can flip? So these are all female spouses?
These are yes, and we're talking about male traits here at the moment.
Well, these are female spouses talking about the husbands.
Yeah.
But do you think you can flip the other way around?
I think you could flip them. However, the character traits and the issues would probably change and shift a little bit. It's not a clean swap, if that makes sense. You can't just take all... Because again, hate to break it to you, but men and women are fundamentally different. Those differences are not bad things, but there are key differences in how we engage, how we interact, how we relate, how we see the world. There's different things that we value. So you wouldn't be able to take male traits and transpose them onto women in the same way you couldn't take the female traits and transpose them onto men. It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's go to the next part of the book, which is the theory of where does it come from. All right. So on childhood. All right. So there are three traits that which Dr. Glover goes into, which sort of leads into why this comes from. So the first principle is abandonment. So the examples are that you might have a clinging parent, and therefore you fear that you'll lose them. There's maybe a lack of interaction or communication from one of the parents, and so therefore they were absent in one sense. And then also a bit about you're viewing parents as perfect, that you yourself are flawed compared to them. So you can never be like them. And that in some sense, there is a gap between you and them.
Yeah.
The other bit is shame. So basically it comes down to, it's bad to be who I am. I'm not comfortable with being who I am, and therefore I need to change all the time. I need to act differently, or I need to hide stuff.
Constantly adapting.
Yeah. And then therefore you develop these coping mechanisms to deal with the shame as well as the abandonment. And that is to hide the shame or your toxicity, and then also hiding your flaws and doing anything to prevent being abandoned. And so what he goes through is that, so how did abandonment come about? Well, you had the loss of fathers in the sense that jobs used to be more rural. You worked on the farm, and so therefore you always with dad all the time. But now as jobs become more urbanized or industrialized, the dad leaves the home to go into the city or to the factory to work there, and the boys never really see their father. And then also there's a proliferation of single parents, as well as a proliferation of broken families.
And you get a whole bucket load of societal ails and issues that go with that.
Yeah, and then what happens next is that you send the boys to school, right? So they're no longer seeing men as their primary role model. They're going to schools, and who's managing the schools?
Yep. And teaching tends to attract women as a career or as a job pathway. Yeah.
Then he also ticks into two areas. So he talks about Vietnam War, which is, there's a drastic change in the role of men, which is now what you used to have with World War I, World War II, Korean War, is that the men will always step up for duty, right? Yep. And now in the Vietnam War, it is now hip or to be cool to actually be that rebellious figure and to not take your duty, to protest, to avoid conflict, and then therefore focus on like harmony, love, and peace.
Well, it's also interesting that with, I think it was with the Korean War as well, but especially with Vietnam, they had the draft.
Yeah,
they had to draft. They had to essentially the draft is you have to force people to go overseas and fight. Yeah. So you're right. There wasn't this, I'm going to go and volunteer. It's I am being forced and told to go pick up a gun and fight overseas. Obviously, in defense of the nation, but there wasn't that patriotic duty that it is my duty to go and protect what is worth protecting. Yeah.
What was the other bit? So after the Vietnam War, you have women's liberations, you have more radical feminisms, and you have slogans like male masculinity is like toxic masculinity.
That's right. Yeah.
Kill a man, or the idea that women is somehow superior to men.
I think it's worth tapping into there that any movement, whether it was the civil rights movement was it the women's movement? What was it actually called?
Women's liberation.
Women's liberation movement. We'll call that. So whether it was the racial civil rights movement or the women's liberation movement, the right to vote, those movements that broke out in the 60s, both of those causes attracted the extremes.
Yeah.
So the ones who go, oh, women are perfect, men are inferior, kill all men. Those sort of ideas do exist on the far extreme. Now, it's fair to say that today we've got more people dancing around with the extreme ideologies, but I think it's important to also paint with the brush, going, hey, not everyone buys into that.
Yeah.
A good example is to contrast that with the civil rights movement. You've got Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X.
Yeah.
Essentially, two sides of the same coin. One looking for advocating a pacifist approach, and the other advocating for a much more extreme and violent approach.
Yeah. But I think by linking, what I think he's trying to do with linking them is that, we talk about abandonment, shame.
Yeah.
shame. It's now shameful to be masculine.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And not only that, that message is now, I guess, taken further than just back in the 60s and 70s. It's now popular.
Yeah.
It's all now in your phone. It's all in your face all the time.
And it's ours. I think it comes down to it's our responsibility to acknowledge, yes, that's the idea that's putting forward. It is a lie. It is not true, and not let that interfere with who we are, with our character and with our personality as men.
Yeah. All right. So we have understanding of where this nice guy traits are coming from. So what is the solution proposed by Dr. Glover? And he says, the opposite of being nice isn't, angry or not nice.
Yeah.
Instead, it's about being integrated. So being comfortable with who you are. So being integrated person versus a nice guy or nice girl. And it says here, being integrated means being able to accept all aspects of oneself. An integrated man is able to embrace everything that makes him unique, his power, his assertiveness, his courage, and his passion, as well as his imperfection, his mistakes, and his dark side. So that is, he has a strong sense of self. He likes himself just as he is. He takes responsibility for getting his own needs met. He is comfortable with his masculinity and his sexuality. He has integrity. He does what is right, not what is expedient. He is a leader. He is willing to provide for and protect those he cares about. He is clear, direct, and expressive of his feelings. He can be nurturing and giving without caretaking or problem solving. He knows how to set boundaries and is not afraid to work through conflict. And so the chapters that he talks into, that he evolves to progress with this idea, is about learning to please yourself, prioritizing your own needs, reclaiming your own personal power, as well as reclaiming masculinity.
Yeah.
And all right, let me just ask you, like, what do you think of those things? What do you think of those things that he listed out? And is he right? Is he wrong? Is he being one of those toxic males?
I think he's on the right track. It's a matter of, I think, to tie that together, it's reclaiming responsibility for who we are as men, and not taking the approach of, oh, it's the world or it's some external outside force that has led me to where I am. Yes, life deals you a deck of cards, but at the same token, we have responsibility to take those cards and make something of it.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of ties together a lot of those ideas, those traits, being comfortable with who we are, who God has made us, and going, you know what, I am not perfect. I have flaws. I have things that I can work on. Rather than seeing those as negatives, see those as opportunities and challenges to further develop and improve yourself and build yourself into someone better.
Yeah. So I'll probably give a little bit more direct example, which is like, okay, guys want to have sex, right? But if he doesn't communicate what he wants to his spouse clearly, openly, try to negotiate it, or rather he does the hidden stuff, which is the secretive, kind of hide who he is. He's ashamed to be
manipulative way.
Well, he's ashamed to express his sexuality in front of his wife. Then he would try to do things like take out the garbage and all that kind of stuff. To manipulate that so that he earns brownie points in a sense, and therefore when it comes to the time for intimacy, the wife is like, where did this come from? Whereas the guy's like, I've built up these credit points. Therefore, now time
to cash it in. And you're right. That's not a healthy approach at all.
And the book is saying that he sets boundaries. He also is happy to communicate and be direct and expressive of himself. So rather than this this bubbly kind of let everything out, there is this is where the line is, this is where we are, this is where we're going, and this is what I need, and this is what I'll tell you. I think those are, like, when it comes down to relationships, that's what it really comes down to. Like, it's just communication and being clear and direct. I just remember this time when some girl asked me to read Jane Austen. It was like Pride and Prejudice.
Sure.
Basically, she has some prejudice that he's a very prideful person, and he's a very prideful person about who he is. Miss Darcy and Elizabeth. And they have all these preconceptions about each other and behaviors that for these two to get to know each other. And how do they get to know each other? They communicate.
Yeah.
And therefore, it breaks down the pride. It breaks down the prejudice between those two. And therefore, they can have a relationship.
Yeah.
Whereas if they never communicate, then they're always going to be having these preconceptions about each other.
Absolutely, yeah. And you go through life as thinking that someone is out to get you.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So
it's a complex topic we're diving into here.
But I think why is it so important is that, what is it to be a man and what is it to be a woman? It's now so blurry.
I think it's important, but it's also complicated because we don't have the two of us. I don't think we have a good foundation as our generation to base a lot of these ideas on because we've lost them.
Well, I think it's like the transgender movement. Now, this is the bit I need to be clear on is that if the transgender movement is correct, that's saying now that male and female is just a software issue, it's just a mind issue, not the body issue, not the
mind
hardware,
and body connected.
Then I can fluidly change. That's what they say. I can fluidly change between men and women according to how I feel.
If you take their philosophy, right, and this is it's important, I think, to separate real world people dealing with these issues and the philosophy, the worldview that is being put out. If you separate those two out, okay, just for the moment, the philosophy that if you follow it to its natural conclusion leads to more confusion.
Yeah.
Right? Now that's not saying that there are real people who are dealing with these issues that we can have a conversation of, I would say later, of going, let's talk about how we can come to some resolution with how to work with these people. But the philosophy, the worldview that is being put out today, it leads to more confusion, and I don't think that that's necessarily a good, healthy thing, especially for young people to be confused. Yeah.
All right. So some reflections on some of the topics that we covered within the book, and I actually did enjoy the book. I have it right in front of me. You haven't read the book.
What's the title again?
It's No More Mr. Nice Guy. So. No More Mr. Nice Guy, A Proven Plan for Getting What You Want in Love, Sex, and in Life by Dr. Robert A. Glover. And he's been coaching nice guys to become more comfortable with their masculinity. And there's a sense that it's okay to be that flawed person. Because what these nice guys are doing is similar to what we've been talking previously in the last season about. We're putting a lot of burden on that partner to seek to gain their approval, right? Because we have some kind of childhood issue or we have some emotional issue that we're not comfortable ourselves. So I did listen to his podcast when he's being interviewed, and I think I just went to the book and I thought, these are some things that need to be talked about and communicated nowadays because we don't know what is it like to be a man. Because I think the media, and we talk about women's liberation, which has taken it on to a further extreme. It's now shameful to be a man. All right, so I think on this book it's applicable for male and female. There's an interesting point about absence of disagreement doesn't mean absence of conflict. So flawed person plus flawed person doesn't mean there's no conflict. You always end up in disagreement. It's just how you resolve those.
How do you deal with it?
How do you resolve those disagreements? And I think, funny enough, communication is the thing. And I guess learning to communicate in the correct way and being comfortable about communicating about the uncomfortable topics. And once you broach that subject, it becomes easier to talk about. He talks about giving permission to look after yourself and place your needs ahead of some of others. So not necessarily being selfish, but because these nice guys have never taken time to look after themselves, they swung too far in the pendulum. Let's bring it back a little bit more.
It's unbalanced. I think that's the key. One of the key ideas taking away from this is keeping a balance of your personality and keeping that well balanced and wooded.
All right, so he's also talked about knowing what you want and being open. It's okay to refuse. So that guy who's the yes man all the time, it's okay to refuse because you keep giving in, and then you sort of you sort of build animosity towards the other person. So draw boundaries and let other people know where they are. Being comfortable with emotions, your needs and your mistakes, and seek your own self-approval because, again, it's like we talked about last episode, stoicism, loving yourself and not letting your happiness be dictated by another person, because you can never make that person happy.
Yeah.
And in failing to understand our needs and flaws, being comfortable with who we are, we're often our worst enemy at finding love. And I'll end with the quote, which is from Dr. Glover. It goes, "I often refer to nice guys as Teflon men. They work so hard to be so smooth, nothing can stick to them. Unfortunately, this Teflon coating also makes it difficult for people to get close. It's actually a person's rough edges and human imperfections that give others something to connect with. So it's okay to acknowledge your own flaws, because that's your character, and that's those rough edges are what let people connect to you."
Yeah.
So a question, I guess, is, we talked about being comfortable with who we are, and I don't know about if you remember one of the episodes we did about failing to find love.
Yeah.
And that person is saying, okay, so if it's okay to be accepting who you are, then how is that different from the phrase, "You must accept me for who I am"?
Yeah.
Do you get it?
Yeah, no, I do get it. I'm thinking about it. I think if you go through, okay, so if your worldview is that you must accept me for who I am, warts and all, that's it, right? If you go through life like that, there's no self-improvement. There's no acknowledgement. You're essentially you're working off the presupposition that you are perfect.
Yeah.
In your current state. There's a flaw in that, because we aren't perfect. We are imperfect creatures. We have flaws. We have issues. A lot of issues. Part of the journey of life is to identify those weaknesses, identify those issues, and seek to improve them, seek to resolve them. We're not going to be successful. We're not going to reach this higher state of being or consciousness or perfection on our own steam, on our own power. But life is I see it as a bit of a journey. Well, it is a journey to try to resolve as many of those issues as we can, learn to be the best version of ourselves that we can be.
Yeah.
Part of that is, I think, the principles of Stoicism that we were talking about in the last episode do help you in identifying and recognizing these sort of character traits, and try to push on through adversity and struggle when they crop up, because life is like that.
Yeah.
But a big part of that is also taking responsibility. And
this bit is about learning to love yourself, and then we've seen this other lady in the failing to find love, is that this person says, "You must accept me for who I am."
Yeah.
That person is actually is not self-aware of the flaws.
Yeah.
And
they're assuming they're perfect.
But they're also expecting that their person will love them for who they are. Now that's not wrong, but there is a imbalance in there. I think when she was saying
there's an imbalance in expectations.
You must accept me for who I am, is saying that these are the flaws. You must totally accept me.
Yeah.
But there's also this other bit when you read on in the context, is that their expectation of the other person has to be that.
Yeah.
So that person cannot change, neither can you, but in the sense that those traits in the other person is perfect.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're getting around in a circle. Originally, I tried to make it more distinct. So the way I was trying to structure this is that, is this too selfish?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, in the end, it's probably not selfish.
No.
Because it's addressing nice guys who've swung too far.
It's an imbalance.
And we're trying to bring them back to the center.
It's an imbalance, yeah. So I think you're tapping into something very interesting, where society, in this case, the broader idea of society, of our culture today, the messaging that's put out through all the different avenues and sources, they are telling you to be perfect.
Yeah.
And that's created a lot of social anxiety when an imperfect person comes along, is told, be perfect, be aspire to this perfect unreal standard, and they go, well, I'm trying the best I can, I can't reach that, there must be something wrong with me. Yeah. And it creates a lot of social anxiety within them.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of young people dealing with a lot of that imbalance, which I think takes the form of a lot of mental health issues here. And this causes a great deal of imbalance. So I think you're right. We need to try and, as our generation, we need to try to figure out how we can get ourselves back to being centered, more balanced in the middle. Yes, aspiring for something better, for something more, is absolutely good. Absolutely. But we also need to acknowledge, yes, we are human, we are imperfect, we're not going to be able to achieve perfection. So, and that inherently is not necessarily, that does not make us bad or evil people.
What does it mean to be a man in 2020? How to relate to women and to my spouse? I think Dr. Glover's discussion on the self-integrated man starts to open a discussion on giving yourself permission to express your feelings in a healthy way and to communicate what your needs are. I think it's actually a human tendency to hide ourselves, our shame, and our inadequacy in front of others. Something that is juxtaposed with today's social climate, where we are to have pride in whatever identity you hold, but there are some taboo areas that we don't want to discuss. The question for you is, how do you achieve your desires with your partner and not overwhelm them, nor set unhealthy expectations that they are to be the sole member who approves and rewards your works? If you like this series, please like, share and subscribe. Put the link on your social media profile for your friends to listen to. Every support counts and motivates me to develop new episodes. You can also reach us by email at thefireindthedesert@gmail.com and Twitter at fireinthedesert. Music is Outfoxing the Fox by Kevin McLeoud at incontech.com. And thanks for listening to another episode of The Fire in the Desert.